That is awesome. Hey, Lenny, you'll have to forgive me. I'm a little starstruck, so I appreciate you taking the time
Oh,
uh,
not at all. Thank you.
to sit down with me. For starters, before we get into any of the Save Me and Save Me Too, I was half expecting Nelly's classic yellow jacket to make an appearance today.
Yeah, I mean
Uh,
that was one of the good calls. I can only take so much responsibility for Nellie's yellow puffer. Um,
I,
I said that I think he should have a distinctive jacket because it was true to one of the characters that I based him on. But the yellow puffer was actually the idea of the director of the first series.
yeah, and it's really iconic. It's become one of those pieces of clothing that I now attribute to a character who, a character who stands, head and shoulders with the rest of the characters who are experiencing a similar struggle. But before I ask any more, how's 2020 been for you? How has coping with the pandemic been for you and
Um,
your?
2020's been a trip. I mean,
Mhm.
there's no other way of describing it really. I mean, it is thrown up on all kinds of levels, challenges, losses, things that we've learned about each other, things that have been revealed about the world we live in, let alone the countries that we live in. Um, it's there's a lot that's come out of 2020, and in a weird way, I'm loath to draw any conclusions about it because it's not over yet, and anything can happen in the next 3 or 4 months, as we've seen really. So it's not even 3 or 4 months now, is it? It's two or three. Anything can happen, and it's been a strange one. It's been a complicated one, but these things are sent to test us.
And what does Save Me and Save Me Too look like with this totally revamped landscape for filmmakers and folks in the television industry? What are you still hoping to be able to do with Save Me and Save Me Too, despite all of these unexpected pitfalls and shortcomings in the way of creativity and creative outlet?
Um, I'm hoping that we can learn from what this time separated but linked has taught us. It's one thing that we can't ignore. I mean, this is a historical moment. This is a moment where there will be a before and after, where we will talk about what it was like before the pandemic and what we will say happened after the pandemic. And to a certain extent, we get to choose what we've learned from this. We get to choose what we decide is important from this experience. And for me, it's I'm not the only person who's feeling it or thinking about it, but one of the things that this pandemic has thrown up for me is just how much we're connected and just how much we have missed our physical contact with each other, being in the same environment with each other, but also that what we've been dealing with I'm in Austin, Texas right now. I have family in London. I have family in Trinidad. I have friends and family all over the world. And all over the world, we are dealing with the same thing. And that is a moment of unity. It's not necessarily a moment of division, but there has been division, and we have to decide which one we want to focus on and which one we want to work with.
And I think you're absolutely right about that. The idea of coming together and trying to find some kind of commonality, because it's been slipping through our fingertips the last several weeks and months.
Yeah.
And it's looking like 2020 almost has a leg up on the world of The Walking Dead and Fear the Walking Dead in a sense. But speaking of that, how are you finding the similarities and also the differences between your work from the past and then what you're doing now for Save Me Too? It's got quite a similar emotional weight and heft to it, but this is now you on a very real ground floor with a character who is grappling with so much, and the way you communicate that is really, really extraordinary.
I think one of the things that's been the biggest difference, and it's partly in storytelling, and it's the thing that's been that I've discovered about the pandemic, is both in Walking Dead and Fear the Walking Dead, and in most stories of the apocalypse, you never really see the beginning. And if you do, you skip very quickly past it. So you want to get to the point when the dead are walking, and one of the things that this pandemic has kind of shown is the choices that get made and the decisions that are made that get us to the point where the dead are walking, or that get us to the point where people are dying, that get us to the point where it's not when we're losing 14 people a day, it's when we're losing 40,000 people a day that people start taking notice and go, maybe we should take this seriously. Or they don't take it seriously until it's happening in front of them, or to somebody that they know. And the path to the apocalypse, I think this pandemic has shown us, if we're not careful, how to do it wrong, but at the same time, in other parts of the world, we've seen how to do it right. And I think, as someone who has existed in the mentality of an apocalypse for a little bit now, the reality of it is very, very similar, but also the small decisions on which things switch has been one of the things that I found enlightening.
What's one of the if not one, but what's the experience you're hoping to bring to audiences through Nellie comes Save Me Too? What are you hoping audiences are able to take away? Because he is going through a transformation as well, and to consider him one of the dead walking at one point is crucial now.
I think that that with Nellie, with the whole story of Save Me and Save Me Too, it is a thriller, but it also is a story of redemption. And it's about how long that road to redemption is, and how bumpy and how many twists and turns it has, and why it's worth it. And the effort that is needed by one individual, but how much that person can't do it on their own. And again, it talks to the things that we were mentioning before about how much we need each other. And in order for Nellie to possibly be successful in finding his daughter, but much more than that, what he learns on the road to trying to do that, he can't do on his own. He needs community, in the same way that in this current moment, I think, and I believe that we need community. And Save Me and Save Me Too is about Nellie's search for Jodie, but it's also about Nellie's community and the characters and the people and the places around him that he relies on in order to try and achieve the impossible.
I think it'll speak volumes, and I think it'll reach folks who had not been anticipating to the kind of emotional response they'll have from the series. One real quick question before I let you go. I'm a huge Marvel nut. I know one of your early fandoms was Marvel. What if you get a phone call, Marvel hits you up, and they ask you to join one of their films? What's that dream role of yours, aside from Blade? What's that one role you would have loved to take up if you could for a Marvel movie?
Oh my God, what a good question. I was one of my other favorite characters in the universe was Daredevil, and I know it's a tricky one. I think they did a good origin story for it on the television show on Netflix. I think they didn't quite get it right in the Ben Affleck version, just because they got the suit wrong for him and just made it much too complicated. But I did, certainly in comic form, have a real soft spot with for Daredevil, and you know, I just thought he was really cool, and so that, you know, that's a character I'd love. I'm a bit long in the tooth to be playing Daredevil now, so they'd have to do a kind of Logan version of it, of Daredevil at the end of, you know, as a grown man, you know, not quite being able to bend his knees at the top of some skyscraper in Hell's Kitchen, and you know, and actually using the stick not just to find his way, but also to keep him standing. We might have to do that version of it, but I've always loved Daredevil. I mean, I think after Chadwick, it's going to be very difficult to do Black Panther anytime soon, and would be slightly disrespectful. But you know, after Blade, Black Panther was the other character where I ran to school screaming, "Have you seen who they've done? Who they've created? Have you seen who they've created?" And I had a huge affinity for it, and I think that obviously, as everybody else does, what Ryan and Chadwick and Denai and everybody involved in it did with Black Panther is monumental, and so it's not one that I'd go anywhere near, because, like I said, I think Chadwick owns that for the foreseeable future. But I had a soft spot. Those were my favorite characters: Blade, Daredevil, and the Black Panther.
I'm excited for the phone call you're going to get from Marvel anytime soon. I know it. Whatever should
they
they
have to
give
do.
you,
I suppose if they did, you know, like they did in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, where they have different versions of Spider-Man. If they have different versions of Blade, I might get a look in. But I think the new version they're going to do, I'm really looking forward to it.
Lennie, you're a light in the industry. I appreciate seeing your work, and I'm incredibly excited to see the work you're going to bring to the future. And again, I'm incredibly excited for Safe 2 set to come out in just a few days. Actually, I appreciated getting to sit down and talk with you. And again, I'm super excited for that Daredevil reboot.
Thank you very much. It's been a
Lennie.
pleasure speaking to you. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too.